So research ethics, as you know, is fundamental to research. You can't separate research from ethics, especially when you're dealing with human subjects. The kinds of research ethics required for pure science research is different. But when you're dealing with people, it's totally different. And while you do have laboratory methods, control group and experimental group in psychological research, etc. But there are some subjects like, say, sociology, where it's a little more difficult to bring about these kinds of research. You can't create a fight between people to see a mob behavior, right? So research, the primary thing is informed consent. And this is very important because I know some years back, ICMR, that's Indian Council for Medical Research, had undertaken a study on Depo-Provera. This is an injectable contraceptive. Now, they had not told the women what it is. Many women, they just said, yes, the tika hai. They say there's no side effects. And later, when this woman started developing thyroid problems, etc., she went and told the ICMR people, I want to withdraw from this particular experiment. They did not say, no, all this is fine. Now, she was a little educated, she had some money, so she went to a private practitioner who immediately removed the injectable part. Even today, lack of ethics in research is a problem in many parts of India. Like, for instance, testing of cervical cancer in vaccines is done. There have been cases where it's done on tribal girls, young tribal girls, etc. So this is unethical because you're using the human subject to experiment. Now, while we protect the confidentiality, because all, like say for instance in the questionnaire which I showed you a little earlier, we take informed consent, we definitely keep the name of the person, a private matter. We don't share the data which we collect with anyone. And after the research process is done, it has to be with the consent of the participants. Then autonomy of the participants is what we need to emphasize. If someone decides that they don't want to be part of it anymore, they have a right to withdraw. You can't force them to stay in your project. You cannot induce them with some monetary benefits, etc. to stay. Ethics requires that you tell. So the responsibility of the researcher is not to devalue the person, but more importantly, when you're dealing with human subjects, supposing you're studying delinquency and a child confides, say, of sex abuse, can you keep it as the research data separate from intervention strategies? No, not when you're dealing with human subjects. It's necessary for you. Of course, when you're doing research with children, you need to have the consent of the school, you need to have consent of the guardians, etc. You can't do research on them otherwise. But if such a serious problem comes up, you're duty bound as a professional to see some remedial measures are brought in. Then the research process should not compound the vulnerability of vulnerable people. Like I told you about the incident about domestic violence or displacement of communities. So you can't say that, see, very many of the people who have come into urban slums are really displaced people from these large-scale projects, development projects. And they face many repeated displacements even in the city, like say when the roads are widened, etc. So if you are studying their lives and you ask them, you can't say, these people are saying these things that they had a lot of land, they had the entire forest, and they were not hungry. All this is lies. You can't make them more vulnerable because you're discounting and taking away their truth. I can give you many examples of that, but let us continue. Now, the other important point is honesty and integrity towards your data. You have to take ruthless care in the collection and the interpretation of the data. The key point is, if you have gone with a hypothesis and you find that the data which comes out from the field is something different, you have to change it. You have to admit that your project was a failure rather than try to find a roundabout explanation to justify your position. And every care has to be maintained to ensure accuracy. Cross-checking, double-checking, figures have to be checked, cross-reading is needed. And as I said earlier, you have to change your position according to the field, what comes out of the field. All of you know that plagiarism is a very, very serious offense which can be punished by law. Citations are very important sources, and as research is finally a process of self-reflexivity and empowerment. So what you are trying to do is to take the research subject as partners of the process. So it brings a change in you because all the time you are expected to introspect. A good researcher to be good in research, you have to introspect. Why am I making this position? Is it biased? Is it based on my prejudice? Or is it because this is what the field is doing? That is where objectivity comes. Research is objective. All research is objective. The researches we have seen, qualitative method, is from the standpoint epistemology. And it is through, interpretative things. So when you interpret, you come into the picture. Because how you understand the social reality, you can't throw yourself out. You are the one who interprets, you will come into it. Your bias, your prejudice, etc. But you recognize it and try to eliminate it. That is where the objectivity of scientific research comes in. Social